If your mornings have become noticeably quieter, if your confidence is not what it used to be, and if you have started telling yourself that these changes are simply part of getting older, I want you to pause for a moment and listen carefully. What I'm about to explain may change the way you think about declining erections after 60. After years of working with older men and listening to the concerns they often struggle to discuss openly, one thing has become increasingly clear. Weaker erections are not always caused by low testosterone. In many cases, the bigger issue is circulation. And that matters because an erection depends heavily on healthy blood vessels and the ability of blood to reach the penile tissue efficiently. The good news is that supporting this system does not always begin with an expensive treatment, a complicated device, or a prescription medication. Sometimes, the first step can be something remarkably simple that you can find in an ordinary grocery store. One vegetable in particular has attracted attention because it naturally contains nitrates that your body can use to support nitric oxide production. I'm talking about beets, and today I want to explain what they can realistically do, how they may support circulation, and how to use them as part of a healthy morning routine. But I also want to be clear from the beginning. No single food can guarantee an erection or reverse every cause of erectile dysfunction. Sexual health is influenced by blood pressure, diabetes, medications, cardiovascular health, hormones, stress, sleep, and many other factors. So think of this as one possible piece of a much bigger picture, not a miracle cure. And before we go deeper, if you value practical, evidence-informed information about men's health and healthy aging, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you can keep learning about ways to protect your strength, energy, and confidence. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because it's always interesting to see how many men and families are having these conversations around the world. Let's begin with something many men over 60 are never properly told. An erection does not simply disappear because you have reached a certain birthday. Aging can certainly change the way the body responds, but age itself is not the whole explanation. In many men, the real issue is that blood vessels gradually become less flexible and less responsive, making it harder to achieve the rapid increase in blood flow required for a firm erection. One of the important players in this process is nitric oxide, a naturally produced signaling molecule that helps blood vessels relax and widen. When nitric oxide is available and the vascular system is functioning well, blood can move more easily through the arteries. This mechanism is particularly important for erectile function because the penis requires a substantial increase in blood flow during arousal. When you are younger and your cardiovascular system is healthy, this process can happen with very little conscious effort. But as the decades pass, several factors can interfere with it. The inner lining of your blood vessels, known as the endothelium, may become less responsive. Arteries can become stiffer. High blood pressure, high blood sugar, smoking, excess body weight, inactivity, and other cardiovascular risk factors can also damage vascular function. At the same time, nitric oxide availability may decline. This does not mean your body is broken. It means your vascular system may need more support than it once did. And there is another side to this that we should never ignore. Erectile difficulties are not only physical. They can affect the way a man sees himself. A man may begin avoiding intimacy, worrying about disappointing his partner, or quietly questioning whether something fundamental has changed inside him. Those feelings can create stress and anxiety, which can make sexual difficulties even harder to manage. That is why I always encourage men to look beyond the bedroom and ask a more important question: what is happening to my overall vascular health? Because sometimes an erection problem is not merely a sexual issue, it can be a signal that your blood vessels need attention. I remember speaking with an older patient who came to me deeply frustrated by this exact problem. He had reached his early 70s and told me that for more than a year, he had been unable to achieve the kind of erection he once considered normal. It was the feeling that he was losing a part of himself. Instead of immediately focusing on a single pill or promising a quick solution, We discuss the broader factors that influence circulation, including nutrition, movement, sleep, cardiovascular health, and the role of nitrate-rich foods. One of the simple dietary options we discussed was beetroot. Beets are naturally rich in dietary nitrates, and these compounds can participate in a pathway that ultimately increases nitric oxide availability. In the body, nitrate can be converted into nitrite, and then, under the right conditions, into nitric oxide. That nitric oxide can help promote vascular relaxation and improve blood flow. This is one reason beetroot has attracted attention in research involving cardiovascular function and exercise performance. But I want you to understand something important. The science does not mean that drinking beet juice guarantees an erection within a certain number of days. Individual responses vary, and erectile dysfunction has many possible causes. What beetroot may do is support one of the biological systems involved in healthy circulation. That distinction matters because responsible men's health advice should never turn a potentially useful food into a miracle claim. If you have persistent erectile difficulties, especially if they are new or getting worse, it is worth discussing them with a qualified healthcare professional. Sometimes the underlying issue may involve blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, medication side effects, or cardiovascular disease, and identifying those problems can be far more important than simply trying another food or supplement. Still, when used as part of an overall healthy lifestyle, beetroot can be a practical addition to the diet. It is accessible, relatively simple to prepare, and provides nitrates along with other nutrients. The goal is not to promise that one glass will suddenly transform your sexual health. The goal is to give your body another source of nutritional support while you address the larger factors that determine circulation and vitality. Now let's take a closer look at why circulation becomes such an important issue for men as they get older. Because understanding the problem is just as important as understanding the possible solution. The first mistake many men make is ignoring nitric oxide and the role it plays in vascular function. Biologically, nitric oxide acts as an important messenger that tells the smooth muscles surrounding your blood vessels to relax. When those vessels relax appropriately, they can widen and allow blood to move more freely. That process matters throughout the body, including the blood vessels involved in erectile function. When vascular health declines, you may notice that erections are not as firm or reliable as they once were, but you may also experience other changes, such as reduced exercise capacity, lower energy, or slower recovery. This is why erectile dysfunction should not automatically be dismissed as an unavoidable consequence of aging. It can sometimes provide an opportunity to examine your cardiovascular health more carefully. The emotional impact can be significant as well. When a man repeatedly experiences sexual difficulty, he may begin to feel powerless or disconnected from the body he once trusted. That frustration can affect confidence and relationships, and the stress surrounding intimacy can sometimes create another layer of difficulty. So the first step is not blaming yourself. It is recognizing that circulation is a biological system that can be influenced by many factors, and some of those factors can be improved. The second issue is the timing and overall quality of your morning routine. You may hear claims online that there is one magical moment when a particular food suddenly becomes dramatically more effective, but the reality is more nuanced. What matters most is building a consistent routine that supports your vascular health throughout the day. Morning can be a useful time to establish that routine because it is often easier to control what you eat and drink before the demands of the day take over. Instead of beginning your morning with highly processed foods, excessive added sugar, or a breakfast dominated by refined carbohydrates, you can choose foods that provide fiber, healthy fats, protein, and naturally occurring nutrients. Beetroot can fit into that pattern. You might use fresh beet juice, cooked beetroot, or beetroot powder, depending on what is practical for you. The important point is that the vegetable itself is not magic. Its potential value comes from its nutritional composition, particularly its nitrate content, combined with an overall diet and lifestyle that support healthy blood vessels. And if you are taking medications or have a condition that affects your blood pressure, you should speak with your healthcare professional before making significant dietary changes, because beetroot can contribute to lower blood pressure in some people. The third mistake is beginning the day with foods that work against the goals you are trying to achieve. If your breakfast regularly consists of processed meats, sugary pastries, heavily refined carbohydrates, and large amounts of caffeine, you are not necessarily giving your cardiovascular system the best foundation. A single breakfast will not destroy your circulation, of course, but repeated dietary patterns matter over time. Diets high in processed foods, added sugars, and unhealthy fats can contribute to metabolic problems, weight gain, high blood pressure, and poor cardiovascular health. Those conditions can eventually affect blood vessel function and sexual performance. Instead, consider building your morning meal around foods that provide sustained nutrition. Eggs can provide protein, avocado offers unsaturated fats. Whole grain toast can provide fiber and complex carbohydrates. A modest portion of nuts can add healthy fats, protein, and minerals. You do not need an elaborate meal plan. The objective is simply to replace a pattern that repeatedly works against vascular health with one that supports it. Think of it this way. If you are trying to improve circulation, your entire lifestyle should be moving in the same direction. A beet-based drink may provide nitrates, but it cannot compensate for a consistently poor diet, physical inactivity, uncontrolled blood pressure, or untreated diabetes. The fourth mistake involves preparation. There is a tendency to believe that every form of beetroot works exactly the same way, but preparation can influence the amount of nitrate you consume and how practical the food is for you. Fresh beet juice is one option. You can also blend cooked or raw beetroot into a smoothie, depending on your preference and digestive tolerance. Another option is a reputable beetroot powder, but if you choose a powder, read the label carefully and select a product from a reliable manufacturer rather than assuming that every supplement has the same nitrate content. And there is an interesting detail involving oral bacteria that deserves some attention. The conversion of dietary nitrate into nitrite begins partly in the mouth through bacteria that live on the tongue. From there, nitrite can participate in pathways that eventually increase nitric oxide availability. This means that using strong antibacterial mouthwash immediately around the time you consume nitrate-rich foods may potentially interfere with this process. That does not mean you should stop brushing your teeth or neglect oral hygiene. Absolutely not. Good dental hygiene remains important. But if you are deliberately using nitrate-rich foods as part of your diet, it may be reasonable to avoid immediately pairing them with an antibacterial mouthwash, unless your dentist or doctor has advised otherwise. Small details can sometimes influence how nutrients are processed, but again, these details should not be exaggerated into promises of dramatic results. And then there is the fifth issue, perhaps the most important one: consistency. A single glass of beet juice is not going to rebuild years of vascular health overnight. Your arteries and cardiovascular system respond to patterns, not isolated moments. If you want to support circulation, think in terms of weeks, months, and long-term habits, rather than searching for a one-day transformation. This is where many men become frustrated. They try something for 2 or 3 days, do not notice a dramatic difference, and immediately decide that it does not work. But healthy aging rarely happens that way. Regular movement, better nutrition, adequate sleep, stress management, maintaining a healthy weight, controlling blood pressure and blood sugar, and avoiding tobacco all work together over time. Beetroot can be one small component of that larger strategy. And if erectile difficulties continue despite lifestyle improvements, do not keep experimenting indefinitely on your own. Erectile dysfunction can have medical causes that deserve proper evaluation, and effective treatments are available. There is no reason to feel embarrassed about asking for help. So, if you want a simple morning routine that incorporates beetroot, keep it practical. One approach is to have a modest serving of fresh beet juice, perhaps around half a cup, depending on the product and your individual dietary needs. Another option is to blend a small beet into a smoothie with other nutritious ingredients. You could also use a quality beetroot powder according to the manufacturer's instructions. Pair that with a balanced breakfast such as eggs with whole grain toast and avocado, or a small serving of nuts alongside fruit and another source of protein. The goal is not to consume as much beetroot as possible. More is not automatically better. The goal is to make a reasonable amount part of a broader pattern of healthy eating. You can then add a short walk or several minutes of gentle movement afterward. Even a 10-minute walk can be a useful way to get your body moving after breakfast, and regular physical activity is one of the strongest lifestyle tools we have for supporting cardiovascular health. When these habits become routine, you are no longer focusing on a single food. You are creating an environment in which your blood vessels, heart, metabolism, and sexual health all receive better support. And that is a much more realistic way to think about improving vitality after 60. Now let's talk about what you can realistically expect when you make these changes, because this is where many men receive misleading information online. The biological benefit of beetroot comes primarily from its naturally occurring nitrates, which can enter a pathway that supports nitric oxide production and vascular relaxation. When blood vessels are able to relax appropriately, blood can move more efficiently, and that can support cardiovascular function, as well as the blood flow required for an erection. But I want to make an important distinction. Improved blood flow does not automatically mean that every man will experience a dramatic change in erectile function. Your response depends on the condition of your blood vessels, your cardiovascular health, medications, hormone levels, metabolic health, stress, sleep, and the underlying cause of your erectile difficulties. Still, supporting circulation can be a meaningful part of a larger strategy, and there is an emotional benefit that should not be overlooked. When a man begins exercising more, eating better, sleeping more consistently, and taking his health seriously, he may start to feel more capable and more in control of his body. That improvement in confidence can matter even when the physical changes are gradual. You may notice that your energy during the day is more stable, that you feel less sluggish in the morning, or that physical activity becomes easier. Those changes are not necessarily caused by beetroot alone. They can reflect the combined effect of several healthier habits working together. And when you feel better physically, you may also feel more comfortable being close to your partner and discussing intimacy without the same level of anxiety. Let me give you an example that illustrates why consistency matters. I once worked with a man in his late 60s who had been dealing with erectile difficulties for several months. He had become discouraged because he remembered how easily his body had responded when he was younger. Instead of assuming that age was the only explanation, we looked at the larger picture. We discussed his physical activity, diet, sleep, blood pressure, medications, and cardiovascular risk factors. We also talked about adding nitrate-rich foods such as beetroot to his diet. After he began following a more consistent routine, including regular movement and a healthier breakfast, he reported that he was noticing changes in his morning energy and overall responsiveness. What mattered most was not one particular glass of beet juice. It was that he had stopped treating his health as something that was already decided for him. He started walking regularly. He paid closer attention to his food choices. He became more consistent with sleep. And he began addressing the factors that could affect his vascular health. That is the lesson I want you to take from stories like this. Sometimes the first improvement is not an immediate change in sexual performance. Sometimes it is simply feeling that you have control over your health again. From there, other improvements can follow. I have seen this pattern in many different types of men. Men who spent their working lives as tradesmen, accountants, business owners, teachers, veterans, pastors, and professionals often share the same concern when they reach their 60s and 70s. They may be willing to talk about blood pressure or cholesterol with their doctor, but when the conversation turns toward erectile function, they become uncomfortable. Some assume that nothing can be done. Others quietly purchase supplements online, hoping that one product will solve the problem. And some simply stop discussing intimacy with their partner because they are embarrassed. I want to challenge that mindset. Erectile difficulties are common, but they should not automatically be accepted as something you have to suffer through in silence. Your sexual health is connected to your overall health, and it deserves the same level of attention as your heart, your blood sugar, your joints, or your sleep. If you notice persistent changes, especially a sudden decline in erectile function, talk to a healthcare professional. Sometimes the most important discovery is not a dietary solution at all. It may be high blood pressure that has gone unnoticed, elevated blood sugar, abnormal cholesterol, a medication side effect, or another condition affecting your vascular system. Addressing that underlying problem may provide far greater benefit than any single food. This is also why I want you to be careful with promises about exact timelines. You may hear someone claim that a particular vegetable will restore erections in 7 days, completely transform circulation in 2 weeks, or guarantee a major improvement within 30 days. Real medicine does not work with that kind of certainty. Some effects of dietary nitrates on blood pressure and vascular function can occur relatively quickly, but long-term improvements in cardiovascular health depend on sustained lifestyle changes. Your body is not a machine with a fixed countdown timer. One person may notice a difference in energy quickly. Another may see little change from beetroot alone because their erectile problem has a different cause. Someone with significant vascular disease may require medical treatment. Another man may have an issue related primarily to medication, anxiety, diabetes, or hormonal factors. That is why the right question is not, how many days until beet juice fixes me? The better question is, what can I consistently do to improve the health of my blood vessels, and what medical issues need to be evaluated? That shift in thinking can protect you from unrealistic expectations and help you make decisions that actually support your long-term health. So, let's bring the practical routine together. If beetroot works well with your diet, you can consider having a modest serving in the morning, either as fresh juice, blended into a smoothie, or in a standardized powder form. You do not need an enormous quantity, and you do not need to force yourself to drink something you dislike. Consistency and overall dietary quality matter more than chasing a large dose. Pair your morning routine with a balanced meal containing protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Limit heavily processed breakfast meats and foods high in added sugar. Be mindful of excessive caffeine, particularly if it affects your blood pressure, sleep, anxiety, or heart rate. Then add some movement. A short walk is enough to begin, and over time, aim for regular aerobic activity along with strength training appropriate for your fitness level. Physical activity helps support cardiovascular function, insulin sensitivity, blood pressure control, and overall energy. If you smoke, quitting is one of the most powerful things you can do for your blood vessels. If you have diabetes, keeping your blood glucose under good control is essential. If you have high blood pressure or high cholesterol, follow your treatment plan rather than trying to replace prescribed care with food. These details may sound less exciting than a single secret vegetable, but they are much closer to what actually determines vascular health. And there is another reason this matters. The same blood vessels that supply the penis are part of the larger cardiovascular system. Erectile function, therefore, gives us a valuable reason to pay attention to what is happening throughout the body. A man who notices persistent erectile changes should not simply assume that he needs a stronger sexual supplement. He should consider whether his heart and blood vessels have also changed. In some cases, erectile dysfunction can appear before more obvious cardiovascular symptoms become noticeable. That does not mean every erection problem predicts heart disease, but it does mean that persistent changes deserve attention. When you approach the problem from this broader perspective, a morning beetroot routine becomes much more sensible. It is not a replacement for medical care. It is simply one nutritional strategy that may support the vascular system while you work on the bigger picture. And when you combine that with movement, nutritious food, healthy sleep, stress control, and appropriate medical care, you are no longer chasing a quick fix. You are building the conditions your body needs to function well as you age. Now I want to bring this back to something very practical, because knowing that beetroot contains nitrates is one thing, but knowing how to fit it into your daily life is another. If you decide to include beetroot in your morning routine, start with a reasonable amount, rather than assuming that more will produce better results. A modest serving of fresh beet juice can be an option, or you can add beetroot to a smoothie with other nutrient-rich foods. Some men may prefer a standardized beetroot powder because it is convenient, especially when fresh beets are not available. Whatever form you choose, pay attention to how your body responds. Beetroot can temporarily change the color of urine or stool, which can be harmless, but if you ever notice something that concerns you, particularly persistent blood or other unusual symptoms, do not automatically blame the beetroot. Speak with a healthcare professional. And if you have low blood pressure, take blood pressure medication, have kidney problems, or have another medical condition that affects your diet, it is sensible to discuss regular beetroot consumption with your doctor. Natural does not automatically mean risk-free, and that is an important principle when it comes to health advice. Your morning meal can then become an opportunity to support the same goals. Instead of relying on processed meats, sugary pastries, or a breakfast dominated by refined carbohydrates, build your meal around foods that provide protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Eggs with whole grain toast and avocado can be one simple combination. A small portion of nuts with fruit and a protein-rich food is another. You do not need an expensive superfood collection or a complicated supplement routine. The foundation is much simpler than that. Eat mostly whole or minimally processed foods, keep added sugar reasonable, consume enough protein, and choose healthy sources of fat and fiber. If you drink coffee, you do not necessarily have to eliminate it. The issue is moderation and how your body responds. Excessive caffeine can increase anxiety, interfere with sleep, and affect blood pressure in some people. And poor sleep itself can negatively affect energy, mood, hormone regulation, and sexual function. So if you are trying to improve your mornings, do not focus on one ingredient while ignoring the rest of the routine. A healthy morning is a collection of small decisions that reinforce one another. There is also a simple habit I strongly encourage: movement. After your breakfast, consider taking a short walk or doing some gentle stretching, provided you are physically able to do so safely. You do not need to spend an hour in the gym every morning to support circulation. Even short periods of movement can help you break up prolonged sitting and get your cardiovascular system working. Over the long term, regular physical activity is far more important than any single morning beverage. Aerobic exercise supports heart and vascular health, while resistance training helps preserve muscle mass and strength as you age. For men over 60, maintaining strength is particularly important because physical independence, metabolic health, balance, and overall quality of life are closely connected to muscle function. And when you combine exercise with good nutrition, you create a much stronger foundation for energy and sexual health than any isolated supplement can provide. Now, there is another detail that deserves clarification because it is often presented in an exaggerated way online: the relationship between oral bacteria and dietary nitrates. Certain bacteria in the mouth help begin the conversion of nitrate into nitrite, which is part of the pathway involved in nitric oxide production. This is one reason researchers have been interested in the oral microbiome when studying nitrate-rich foods. However, you should not take this information to mean that brushing your teeth is harmful or that you should neglect dental hygiene. Absolutely not. Brush your teeth, floss, and maintain regular dental care. If you use an antibacterial mouthwash, particularly immediately around the time you consume a nitrate-rich food, you may want to discuss the timing with your healthcare professional if you are specifically trying to maximize nitrate metabolism. But this is a secondary detail. Your overall cardiovascular health is much more important than trying to engineer a perfect beetroot routine. Never sacrifice basic hygiene because of an internet health claim. And now we come to one of the most important questions men ask me: how quickly will I notice a difference? The honest answer is that there is no universal timetable. Some vascular effects associated with dietary nitrate can occur relatively quickly, but that does not mean an erection will suddenly become stronger after a predetermined number of days. If your erectile difficulty is caused by significant vascular disease, diabetes, medication effects, nerve problems, hormonal changes, or psychological factors, beetroot alone may make little or no noticeable difference. That is not a failure of the vegetable. It simply means the underlying cause needs to be addressed. This is why I would never tell a man that he is guaranteed to have a stronger erection after 7 days, or that 30 days of beet juice will automatically restore sexual function. Those promises sound attractive, but they are not responsible medical advice. What you can reasonably expect is that a healthier dietary pattern, regular physical activity, good sleep, and management of cardiovascular risk factors can support your health over time. Beetroot may fit into that strategy because of its nitrate content, but it should remain one part of the picture. If you have been struggling with erectile difficulties, there are also some situations where you should not wait and experiment with foods on your own. A sudden change in erectile function deserves attention, particularly if it occurs alongside chest discomfort, shortness of breath, unusual fatigue, dizziness, or other concerning symptoms. Persistent erectile dysfunction also deserves a proper medical evaluation. Your clinician may review your medications, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood glucose, hormone levels, lifestyle, and cardiovascular risk factors. Depending on your situation, there may be several effective treatments available. Medication, counseling, physical activity, weight management, treatment of diabetes or high blood pressure, and other medical approaches can all have a role. The important thing is to identify what is actually causing the problem instead of assuming that every man has the same issue. And I want to emphasize something that often gets lost in conversations about men's sexual health. Your worth as a man is not determined by the firmness of an erection. Sexual function is an important part of health and relationships, but it does not define your identity. When men understand this, they often become more willing to seek help instead of hiding the problem. They begin talking openly with their partners. They become more consistent with exercise and nutrition. They take their blood pressure and blood sugar seriously. They stop looking for miracle products and start building sustainable habits. That change in mindset can be extremely valuable. You do not need to chase youth. You need to protect the health you have and support your body as it changes. So if you are over 60 and your mornings are not what they once were, do not immediately assume that your best years are behind you. Look at the whole picture. Examine your circulation, your cardiovascular health, your activity level, your diet, your sleep, your medications, and your stress. Consider adding nitrate-rich foods such as beetroot if they are appropriate for you. Pair them with a balanced breakfast and regular movement. Give your body consistent support rather than expecting an overnight transformation. And most importantly, if erectile problems persist, speak with a healthcare professional. Sometimes the answer is nutritional. Sometimes it is medical. Often, it is a combination of several factors. The goal is not simply to achieve an erection. The goal is to maintain a healthy heart, healthy blood vessels, physical strength, energy, confidence, and a satisfying quality of life as you grow older. So let's bring everything together, because the most important message I want you to remember is that getting older does not automatically mean losing your vitality, your confidence, or your ability to enjoy intimacy. The problem is not simply the number of candles on your birthday cake. What matters is what is happening inside your cardiovascular system and how well your blood vessels are functioning. If circulation has become less efficient, your erections may become less reliable, and that can be a sign that your vascular health deserves more attention. Beetroot can be a useful food to consider because its natural nitrates can support the pathway involved in nitric oxide production, which helps blood vessels relax. But the real benefit comes when you place that food inside a much larger lifestyle strategy. A reasonable serving of beetroot or beet juice in the morning, a balanced breakfast, regular movement, adequate sleep, healthy body weight, controlled blood pressure and blood sugar, and avoidance of smoking can all work together to support your vascular system. This is the approach I want you to remember. Do not search for one magical ingredient that promises to fix everything. Instead, give your body several consistent reasons to function better. And please do not become discouraged if you do not notice an immediate change. Your body has spent decades responding to your habits, your diet, your activity level, your sleep, your stress, and your medical conditions. It is unrealistic to expect one food to reverse all of that overnight. Some men may notice changes in energy or circulation relatively quickly, while others may need much more time or may discover that their erectile difficulties have another underlying cause. The important thing is to remain consistent and realistic. If beetroot agrees with your diet and your healthcare professional has no concerns about you consuming it regularly, it can be one simple addition to your routine. But continue working on the bigger factors that matter even more. Walk regularly. Maintain your muscle strength. Eat more whole foods. Get enough sleep. Manage stress. Take prescribed medications correctly. Monitor your blood pressure and blood sugar when necessary. And if you have persistent erectile dysfunction, have it evaluated rather than accepting it as something you simply have to live with. There is also something deeply encouraging about taking action, even when that action seems small. A man who begins his morning by making a healthier choice is not just drinking a vegetable juice, he is creating a routine that tells him, "My health still matters." That mindset can influence the rest of the day. Maybe you take the short walk you have been postponing. Maybe you choose a healthier lunch. Maybe you finally schedule the appointment you have been avoiding. Maybe you talk honestly with your partner about what you have been experiencing instead of carrying the concern alone. These decisions may seem unrelated at first, but together they can create a powerful shift in how you approach aging. You are not trying to become 30 again. You are trying to help the body you have today remain strong, capable, and healthy for as long as possible. And remember that erectile function is only one part of this story. The same cardiovascular system that supports sexual function also supports your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your muscles, and virtually every other organ in your body. When you improve your vascular health, you are not simply working toward better intimacy. You are investing in your overall health and independence. That is why I encourage men to view sexual changes as an opportunity to pay closer attention rather than as a reason for shame. If something has changed, investigate it. If your blood pressure is high, address it. If your cholesterol is elevated, manage it. If your blood sugar is uncontrolled, work with your healthcare team. If a medication may be contributing to the problem, ask your doctor whether there are alternatives. And if stress, anxiety, or relationship difficulties are involved, those deserve attention too. Good men's healthcare looks at the whole person, not just one symptom. So if you want to begin with one simple step tomorrow morning, you can consider adding a modest serving of beetroot to your breakfast routine, provided it is appropriate for you. You might choose fresh beet juice, blended beetroot, or a quality beetroot powder used according to its directions. Pair it with nutritious foods rather than processed breakfast items. Drink enough water throughout the day, and add some gentle movement afterward. Then keep going. Do not judge your progress after one morning. Give your lifestyle changes time to become habits. And do not measure success only by whether you experience an immediate change in your erection. Look at the larger signs as well. Are you becoming more active? Is your energy improving? Are you sleeping better? Is your blood pressure under control? Are you making better food choices? Are you feeling more confident about taking care of yourself? These are meaningful improvements, and they create the foundation for healthier aging. At the same time, never allow a social media health claim to delay proper medical care. If your erectile difficulties are persistent, worsening, or accompanied by other concerning symptoms, speak with your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional. There are evidence-based treatments for erectile dysfunction, and many men can improve their sexual function once the underlying factors are identified and treated. You do not have to choose between lifestyle changes and medical care. In many cases, the best results come from combining them. A healthy diet can support your body. Exercise can strengthen your cardiovascular system. Medical treatment can address conditions that food alone cannot correct. And honest communication can reduce the anxiety and isolation that often surround sexual difficulties. There is no shame in asking for help. In fact, taking your health seriously is one of the strongest things you can do. So, if you have been telling yourself that your strongest years are behind you simply because you are over 60, I want you to reconsider that belief. Aging brings changes, but it does not mean you stop responding to healthy habits. Your body remains adaptable. Your blood vessels can benefit from better nutrition and regular activity. Your muscles can respond to appropriate strength training. Your sleep can improve when you establish better routines. Your cardiovascular risk can often be reduced through consistent lifestyle choices and proper medical care. And your sexual health deserves the same attention and respect. Beetroot is not a miracle cure, and I would never want you to think of it that way. But as one small part of a healthy lifestyle, its nitrate content may help support the vascular system that plays such an important role in circulation and erectile function. If this video gave you a practical idea you can safely discuss with your healthcare professional and incorporate into a healthier routine, take that first step. Consider what you can change tomorrow morning. Maybe it is adding a nutritious food. Maybe it is taking a 10-minute walk. Maybe it is reducing processed foods. Maybe it is finally checking your blood pressure or making an appointment about an issue you have been ignoring. One decision will not transform your health overnight, but small decisions repeated consistently can change the direction of your health over time. If you found this information useful, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell me where you are watching from. Share this with a man, husband, father, brother, or friend who may need a reminder that he is not alone. And subscribe for more evidence-informed information about healthy aging, men's health, circulation, prostate health, energy, and sexual wellness. Remember, getting older is not the same thing as giving up. Your body is still capable of adapting, responding, and benefiting from better care. Your next chapter does not have to be defined by what has changed. It can be shaped by what you choose to do next. One healthier morning, one better decision, and one consistent habit at a time.